After 4 long years since saying goodbye to her daughter and son-in-law, Abigail continued to fight an internal battle against the deep pain of loss. Yet during a walk with her grandchildren, something extraordinary happened. She saw the deceased couple. This seemingly impossible encounter was about to unravel dark mysteries. I hope you enjoy this story. Nothing is more chilling than watching the news and seeing the growing whirlwind of violence that plagues our times. But what happens when this cruel and cold reality, which we often watch as mere spectators, ruthlessly bursts through our door, sinking its sharp claws into our history? Mrs. Abigail experienced this anguish up close when cruel fate entered without warning, turning her life into a kaleidoscope of fear and despair. In an instant, her peaceful existence shattered like a broken mirror, reflecting a distorted reality. That evening, Abigail was preparing a delicious meal because her grandchildren were coming to stay the night. A tasty cake, the favorite of Amy and Charlie, her 3-year-old twin grandchildren, was already on the table. They were staying with their grandmother so that their parents, Mary and her husband, could attend a play they had been looking forward to. The house was filled with liveliness and joy upon the children's arrival. After the farewells, Abigail was left alone with the twins as the couple set off for their evening out. Abigail cherished having her grandchildren around. They were the light of her life. Together, they had fun, with Abigail sharing stories that made the children's eyes sparkle with excitement. Putting them to bed was easy after a day full of activities that left them exhausted. Meanwhile, not far away, Mary and her husband were enjoying a rare night out alone. Since the twins' arrival, moments like this had become increasingly scarce. But this night was special. It was meant to reignite the flame that time had threatened to extinguish. After the play ended, they decided to visit a restaurant that held memories from the early days of their relationship, a place filled with sighs and reminiscences. The restaurant was just a few blocks away from the theater, allowing them to savor the spring air and each other's company during a leisurely walk. Hand in hand, they strolled through the serene night, illuminated by soft moonlight and bright stars. A gentle breeze caressed their skin, and the scene felt like something out of a fairy tale, a perfect image that reminded them of the first pages of their love story. But as in all great tales, an unexpected twist was about to occur. As they chose a dark alley to shorten their journey, a terrifying scene unfolded before them. The street's darkness grew dense and ominous, and suddenly, a shadowy figure emerged from the shadows, gripping a weapon with menacing intent. Violence hung palpably in the air, and his sharp words cut through the silence as he demanded they hand over everything they had. Now faced with a life-or-death situation, the couple's hearts raced with fear. They knew they couldn't risk their lives for material possessions. With trembling hands, they began to hand over their belongings when suddenly the night's silence was pierced by the sharp sound of a police siren. The assailant, already on edge, flinched like a cornered animal. Panic overtook him, and without thinking, he abruptly fired the weapon at the couple. The gunshot echoed through the night, a single flash of light tearing through the darkness. Mary and her husband, now involuntary targets, were struck by the same bullet. The searing pain was followed by the reverberating sound of the gunshot bouncing off the alley walls. The ominous noise caught the attention of the approaching police, and a brief but intense chase unfolded, like shadows dancing in the night. Eventually, the assailant was cornered and silence returned, an oppressive, heavy silence filled with tragedy. In that dark and unforgiving alley, fate had woven a treacherous path. Mary and her husband's bodies now lay lifeless on the cold ground, victims of a series of events beyond their control. The alley, a silent witness, held the secrets of that fateful night. In the early hours of the morning, a phone rang, shattering the silence with an urgency that made Abigail's heart race. She answered, and the news on the other end hit her like a lightning bolt, a shock that pierced deep into her soul. Her only daughter and son-in-law were dead, their lives snuffed out in an instant. The shock rippled through her like an emotional earthquake, shaking the very foundations of her world. Tears flowed as she grappled with a flood of complex and indescribable emotions. The void that opened before her seemed endless, a dark abyss threatening to swallow her whole. The cruelty of life being extinguished so senselessly was almost impossible to comprehend. Now, Abigail was faced with a new and daunting responsibility, raising her grandchildren, Amy and Charlie. These two young, curious souls, only 3 years old, carried the weight of losing their parents in a world they were just beginning to understand. Every day, their sad and innocent questions cut through the air. Where are mommy and daddy? How could she explain the profound absence of their beloved parents? How could she make them understand that they would never return? It was a heartbreaking task, a challenge for which no one is ever truly prepared. As time, relentless as always, moved forward, Abigail and the children found ways to cope with the loss. A new routine slowly emerged, a fragile balance between sorrow and the necessity to move on. Together, they began to build a narrative that honored the memory of the absent parents while allowing space for new joys. However, their approaches to dealing with the loss differed. The children surprisingly sought to remember and share stories about their parents, as if trying to keep them alive through words. Each memory became a thread that kept them connected to their past. Abigail, on the other hand, chose to carry her pain in silence. The wound was too deep, the loss a shadow that darkened every aspect of her life. Speaking about it, confronting the intensity of her grief, felt like tearing her heart apart over and over again. 4 years passed since that dreadful night. The twins, now 7 years old, had found in their grandmother a source of love and care. Yet Abigail felt an immense burden on her shoulders, a responsibility that went beyond mere caregiving. The task before her was monumental: to raise these two children to be kind, compassionate, and resilient despite the tragedy that had marked their early lives. Despite everything, it was school vacation time, and a friend of Abigail's, sensing the need for a break, extended a thoughtful invitation. She invited Abigail and her grandchildren for a few days' retreat at a cozy cabin in the mountains. The idea of escaping the daily routine, leaving worries behind, and offering the children a chance for fun and relaxation brought a rare smile to Abigail's face. The scenery was breathtaking, the cabin nestled in the heart of the mountain, blending seamlessly with the wild beauty of the landscape. Surrounding them, nature unfolded in all its splendor, with the final touch of beauty being the panoramic view of a large lake at the mountain's base, reflecting the sky like a mirror. The children, full of energy and excitement, immediately set out to explore their surroundings. Abigail watched with tenderness as they embarked on this new adventure, but ever the concerned guardian, she reminded them not to venture too far into the forest and to stay close to the cabin so they wouldn't get lost. As the first day turned to dusk, the sun cast warm, golden hues across the horizon. The children continued to play outside while Abigail and her friend prepared dinner. Then the peaceful retreat took an unexpected and alarming turn. Abigail's granddaughter, Amy, suddenly rushed into the cabin, her breath uneven and her eyes wide with urgency. The small, panting figure carried an unsettling restlessness as she recounted a story that froze the air in the room. Amy explained that she and her brother Charlie had been playing hide and seek in the nearby forest, but the game took a terrifying turn when she lost track of Charlie. Despite her insistent calls, there was no response from him. Abigail's friend, familiar with the area, immediately recognized the danger. The forest was a labyrinth of tangled trees and hidden paths, a place where a young child could easily become disoriented. Realizing the urgency, she grabbed the phone and began calling other nearby residents. The gravity of the situation quickly mobilized the community into action. As daylight dwindled, each passing minute made the search more challenging. Shadows grew longer, swallowing the clues that could lead to Charlie. The searchers pressed on, their lanterns cutting through the darkness like stars in a night sky. But strangely, it was as if Charlie had vanished, his footsteps swallowed by the forest. Amy, standing by the searchers, did her best to provide information about where she and Charlie had been, but her resilience was beginning to crumble. She was like a house of cards, unable to withstand the growing storm of fear and exhaustion. Abigail's friend, noticing Amy's exhausted state, suggested that she be taken back to the cabin to rest. Promising that the search would continue, she reassured Amy that everything would be okay. Tenderly supporting her granddaughter, Abigail led her back to the cabin. Inside, as they lay together, Abigail stroked Amy's hair, trying to provide comfort. The fatigue of the tumultuous day weighed heavily on her as well, and her mind was a whirlwind of worries and silent prayers. As Amy's eyes slowly closed, carried away by exhaustion, Abigail too succumbed to sleep, though it was restless, an uneasy dance of dreams and worries intertwining in a whirlpool of thoughts. In this half-dreaming state, Abigail experienced something that seemed to transcend the bounds of mere dreaming. Her eyes, though closed, saw with a clarity she had never known. It was a dream, yet so vivid and tangible that she could feel every breeze, every detail of the environment around her. In that vivid dream, Abigail found herself standing in the cabin, looking out the window. But what she saw through the glass defied all explanation. There before her stood her daughter and son-in-law, the very ones who had been taken by tragedy 4 years ago. Abigail's heart raced as she watched them. Their smiles were radiant, their eyes filled with a peace she could hardly comprehend. An invisible force seemed to draw her, a silent call she couldn't ignore. Without hesitation, she followed the couple as they stepped into the forest, each of their movements like a beacon guiding her way. Abigail's heart pounded as she followed, her feet moving with determination, yet no matter how hard she tried, they remained just out of reach. Their hands were intertwined, their faces calm and serene as they ventured deeper into the forest. Their figures gradually blended with the night shadows until finally they stopped. Before them lay a small crevice in the mountain, an entrance to a tiny cave. Abigail's heart raced, her emotions swirling. She met her daughter Mary's gaze, and in that moment, Mary's smile shone like a gentle light. Her words echoed in Abigail's mind. Thank you, Mom, for taking care of my babies. With a sudden jolt, Abigail woke up, her heart pounding, her hands trembling. She sat up in bed, looking beside her where Amy slept peacefully, unaware of the profound journey her grandmother had just experienced. Without hesitation, Abigail rushed out of the cabin, her heart pounding with urgency. She called out, I know where Charlie is. Her words were a mix of desperation and conviction as she asked if anyone knew of a small cave in the forest, one that matched the description she had seen in her dream. The words flowed from her with a confidence she didn't fully understand. The small cave Abigail described wasn't far from the cabin. The volunteers quickly gathered their lanterns and ventured into the forest. And there, inside the crevice in the mountain, was Charlie. His small, brave figure was bathed in the light of the lanterns, his face a mixture of surprise and relief. Abigail was overcome with awe and gratitude. It felt as if angels, her deceased daughter and son-in-law, had guided her to Charlie through that vision, existing at the edge between dream and reality. The sensation was indescribable, transcending mere words. This experience profoundly changed how Abigail lived with her grief and longing for her lost daughter. The grief hadn't disappeared, but it had found a place where it could coexist with a newfound sense of comfort. Abigail began to find joy in memories of her daughter, not just in tears and sadness, but also in shared laughter and moments filled with love. The vision had brought her deep peace, especially in her role of raising her grandchildren. She had seen Mary's smile and felt her gratitude in that vision, a silent confirmation that she was doing a good job. And so, in the quiet of that night in the mountains, Abigail found a peace she could never have predicted. Whether it was a dream, a gift from heaven, or something beyond human understanding, the vision had transformed her pain into something more, something that transcended sadness. If you enjoyed the story, please give it a like and subscribe to the channel Stam Talk. Leave a comment with a number from 1 to 10 to let us know how much you liked it. Also, be sure to check out the video currently on your screen. See you soon.